The Montreal Alouettes and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers continue to gear up ahead of their battle for the 110th Grey Cup tomorrow in Hamilton. Final walkthroughs are happening today at the Tim Hortons Field, with both teams set to practice at the stadium. They'll also be going head-to-head for the CFL's biggest prize tomorrow night. The Blue Bombers will be making their fourth consecutive appearance in the championship game, while the Alouettes will be returning to the Grey Cup final for the first time since 2010. Now, for more on all things Grey Cup, we're joined live by TSN's Claire Hanna. Claire, thanks for joining us this afternoon. There's just so much excitement in the air, I'm sure, where you are now in our newsroom as well. Let's start off with all the festivities happening this weekend in Hamilton. How are locals celebrating the big game tomorrow?
Staying at is right across the street from the convention center, where all of the teams, even the ones that aren't in the Grey Cup, have these houses. And it was so loud, I had to sleep with earplugs. So the party is alive and well in Hamilton. Carrie Underwood played last night, and there was a lot of, I could see Riders jerseys, Ottawa Redblacks jerseys. Of course, it's the Blue Bombers and the Montreal Alouettes in the Grey Cup, but a lot of representation from all across Canada here and excited for the Grey Cup this weekend.
Now, the Blue Bombers, let's get into the game itself, are the heavy favorites going into the game tomorrow night. But it's their fourth consecutive appearance in the Grey Cup. They won back-to-back titles, 2019 and 2021, before losing last year. So do you think they have what it takes to win it all this year?
Well, I think the team's coming in very confident. They won the Western Final, and for a lot of these players, they remember the pain of what it felt like to lose to the Toronto Argonauts last year. And Zach Collaros just spoke with the media, and he was asked what he's going to remember about these teams, these games 20 years from now. And he said, I'm going to remember the losses. And I don't know, I don't think he was joking. I think he was pretty serious. But for this team right now, they remember the sting. They do not want that to happen, and I think they come in, and this week, Eden, entails a lot of distractions. There's media, there's a lot of extra meetings, but they really piece together when they're going to have some extra time to go through film, to have meetings with their positional groups, and I think that right now they just have this really calm, steady confidence about them going into the game tomorrow.
We'll talk about the Alouettes. They're returning to the title game for the first time since their 2010 Grey Cup win. Tell me a little bit about them. What's their strengths, their weaknesses, and can they expect to win it all tomorrow?
Well, Eden, the Montreal Alouettes right now are doing walkthrough behind me, and I was actually just talking to a player, and they were chatting about the UTEC Bowl, which has Western and Montreal in the final to go to the Vanier. So they're thinking about another sports league right now. But let's talk about their strengths. This is a young team. They're hungry. That could lead to inexperience, but I think that right now it's their defense. They had 9 turnovers in that Eastern Final against Toronto, and they were the heavy underdogs in that game, but they showed that they could take on the best team in the CFL at that time and beat them. I think some of their weaknesses might be that inexperience, just the fact that there are so many distractions this week that maybe there's been some moments this week they aren't prepared for. Are they going to have had the amount of time they want in film? So those are some of the things that they're going to be looking at. But as we saw last year, the Toronto Argonauts were the underdogs, and they came in and beat the Bombers. So anything is possible in this Grey Cup.
And there's clearly, an old saying that offense wins games, but does defense win championships? So who do you think will come out on top, Claire?
Let's look at both defenses briefly. For the Blue Bombers, Adam Bighill has been such a key part to this defense, and he's a game-time decision for the Blue Bombers tomorrow. I actually don't expect he's going to play, but the depth behind him is really impressive. They've got Shane Gauthier, who's been in the league for a number of years. They've got Willie Jefferson. They've got Jackson Jeffcoat as defensive lineman. And the Blue Bombers have had one of the strongest defenses in past years. But let's look at the Montreal Alouettes defense. They made some major additions in the middle of this season. They signed Sean Lemon a few weeks into the season. He didn't have a contract. He's now their leader in sacks. And then they had Darnell Sankey, who's their middle linebacker. He joined the team midway through in a trade. And they have really augmented this defense. And as I mentioned, created 9 turnovers in the East Final. So I don't know, when you match these defenses up, they're both extremely good, and I'm not a betting person, so I'm not going to make a prediction when it comes to that.
Well, there's one thing that we can guarantee. The halftime show is going to be spectacular. What are you hearing ahead of Green Day's performance?
Welcome to paradise. Could you ask for a better halftime show? Now, I wasn't at soundcheck this morning, but I heard that they might be playing Boulevard of Broken Dreams. It's going to be a bit of a mix of old songs and new songs, some of the classics they had from their first couple albums. But you know what? whatever they play, good riddance to that band because they are iconic, and I think they are going to put on an amazing performance here in Hamilton.
A great way to kick things off for sure. Claire Hanna with TSN, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.